time. And so let me just welcome you and thank you for being here. My name is Erin, if we haven't met, and we're going to get started. It's the 4 scientifically proven tricks that dietitians use to eliminate tummy troubles. And in this seminar, I'm going to teach you exactly how to implement these tricks so that you can reduce gas, bloating, stool irregularity, reflux, and abdominal pain by at least 80% within 3 weeks. Make sure you get the information that you need today by shutting down distractions, like if you have TV on in the background, maybe put your iPhone in do not disturb or airplane mode. Give yourself this time to get the life-changing information that you deserve. So try to shut down any distractions that you can. Also, make sure you stick around until the end because I'm going to be offering an awesome bonus. I'm going to describe it to you at the end what it is, but it's only available today live on this seminar. Okay, so make sure you stick around for that because nobody is getting it that's not here live with us. Okay, so in that little chat box, if you can find it, can you just type yes or no for me if you feel frustrated that nothing seems to fix your digestive problems, not even visiting your doctor or trying special diets or taking dietary supplements? Can you type yes or no for me to that? And I'm seeing those replies. Thank you. Also, can you tell me if food has become a confusing and scary world in which you're never sure exactly what to eat? If that applies to you, can you type yes or no? And finally, can you type yes or no in your chat? Do you feel like your digestive problems are having a major impact on your relationships, on your career, and on your enjoyment of life? So this isn't just a minor inconvenience. Like, this is actually having an impact on you. If you said yes to those, and I'm seeing a lot of your yes replies, thank you. I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that, but I'm also so glad you're here because you're exactly the person that I'm here to deliver this information to, because you're the one that can benefit from it. Here's how to know specifically that you're in the right place tonight. If you've read all of the digestive health advice that you can find and you actually feel more confused than ever by it, all you want is something that works, that's sustainable, that's healthy, and that gives you results. If that's the case for you, you're in the right place. You're also in the right place if you feel pretty overwhelmed. You feel like there's not enough time to sort through all the information that you find and figure out what you should actually do. And there's definitely not enough time to actually do it because it seems so time consuming. You're in the right place if that's the case. And finally, if you feel anxious and scared over this, I hate to go there, but I've worked with so many people like this. I know that's what happens. You feel like it's ruining your life and you don't know where to turn next. You're tired of the embarrassment, of the inconvenience, of the pain. And the more things you try, the more you start to lose faith that you can find a solution, and that can be really scary. So if you feel like that's the right thing that you're looking for, stick with me because we're going to get into it. And you might be wondering, if you don't know me, who I am to be sharing all of these tips today. Well, long story short, I'm a registered dietitian. I'm dual credentialed in the United States and the United Kingdom, and I hold an additional board certification in integrative and functional medicine. I also have a private practice, Real Nutrition RX, where I've helped hundreds of people recover from IBS and digestive problems. I don't take a conventional approach. I'm not like one of those dietitians where you get a chintzy little handout and get sent on your way. I practice something called integrative and functional medicine. And with this approach, you get to the root cause of the problem, and it's really catching on, you guys. I've been featured in a lot of different magazines and publications. I was asked to publish my first book, The Bone Broth Miracle Diet. I've been on a variety of webinars that they've hosted me on. So the point is that this is effective and it's catching on, and so you're smart to get in on it because it actually works much better than the conventional approach of, here's your 10-minute doctor appointment, here's a prescription that doesn't work. It's all in your head, have a nice day. That's not what we're going to do today, okay? So you might be wondering what I'm doing here, sharing all these secrets. Well, basically, long story short, I've been specializing in gastrointestinal problems since the beginning of becoming a dietitian. And before long, I was fortunate enough to have some great mentors and training, and I got really good at it. And so I was getting great results for people. And that really made me feel satisfied for a while. But then I started to notice a really disturbing thing. And that was that basically this approach I'm going to teach you is well studied and it's well known in the scientific literature. And a lot of people, even with IBS, know about it. But here's how it's set up. It's set up like only a few dietitians know about it, and you're supposed to go to your doctor, and your doctor's supposed to know one of us and refer you, and your insurance is supposed to pay for it. And for most people, it just doesn't work out that nice. And so there's just tons of people with IBS who come to me saying, you know, I can't find a solution in the conventional setting. Help me out. And, you know, it seems like it's very blocked from people. So I thought, okay, it's just not sitting right with me that so many people aren't getting access to this information. And then kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me was I had this client named Beryl. And basically, she was this lovely older lady with 7 grandkids, and she had debilitating IBS. I mean, she was kind of housebound by it. Her family had to help pitch in care for her, help her with her laundry when she had an accident. It was so embarrassing for her and just really sad. So her family brought her to me, and most of the people, I think, wouldn't have taught this approach to Beryl because it's kind of considered to be a little bit complicated. But at that point, thankfully, I had refined the whole system and created it so that it's like really easy and plug and play. And so I said, I'm going for it. I taught it to her and I sent her on the way. And then sure enough, a few months later, I ran into Beryl in Sainsbury, which is a grocery store over there in England where I used to live. And she was doing great. She looked great. She was playing with her grandkids. She told me at home. She had a social life and it had been life-changing for her. And so I said, you know what? That's it. Like, I kind of had this epiphany that night. I was like laying there going to sleep, and I thought, you know, if Beryl can do this, it doesn't need to be blocked behind like your doctor and the dietitian and all this like financial costs. It doesn't have to be like that. Beryl can do it with my handouts. Anybody can do it. She doesn't even know how to use a computer. So I kind of, from then, became really obsessed with getting this out there just because I think it's so needed. And I'm excited to share it with you. So long story short, that's why we're here. So if you can, I want you to start imagining what it would be like to experience the results of this approach. Because here's what happens to my clients. They get free from pain and bloating and reflux and gas. They have regular normal bowel movements. They have awesome certainty around food choices, like what to eat and not eat. They're sure of what to do. They can go out to restaurants and parties without fear of having a disaster come from it. They have great energy, mental clarity, excellent mood, and they no longer have their digestive problems kind of making the shadow over their life, their career, their social life, their relationships. It's very freeing. So just imagine what that would be like. If that sounds amazing, let's get into it. Here's what we'll talk about. I'm going to talk about IBS or irritable bowel syndrome because that's basically what we're talking about here. And I'll talk about what quickly improves IBS, how to actually enjoy your diet, how to get the best possible results with this approach, and why your individuality is actually an advantage, not a bad thing, okay, that you're a unique individual. So basically, real quick, I'm going to be calling this IBS from here on out. So let's just get on the same page really quickly with what it is. It's all the symptoms we've already been talking about. So these are basically the symptoms of IBS. And there's subtypes. There's C for constipation, D for diarrhea, M is for mixed, and then there's unclassified. What's really critical to know, you guys, about IBS is it's a diagnosis of exclusion or a bucket diagnosis. And what that means is that if you have digestive problems and you go into your doctor and say, what do I have? They'll test you for Crohn's. They'll test you for colitis and celiac and cancer. They rule all those things out. Then they just say, congrats, you just have IBS. Here's some Imodium or some other prescription that doesn't really fix it, and like, have a nice day. Or maybe it were some antidepressants, and good luck with that. And the reason why I bring this up is because there's actually a lot of different possible underlying causes for IBS. And so, but they're not identified in those cases. It's just kind of like, well, if you don't have anything else, we call it IBS. So you need something that's specific to IBS that actually fixes the problem, no matter what your underlying cause is. And that's what this approach is I'm going to teach you. technically, IBS is diagnosed using the Rome criteria, and basically it's just that, okay, you've had these symptoms for 6 months, and specifically for the last 3 months, you've had them at least 1 day per week. Well, what if you've only had them for 5 months? You wouldn't get diagnosed, but it's really still the same thing. You just didn't wait for that extra month. So my point is, whether you have the diagnosis or not, this approach still works, okay? You might not have met their cutoff, but it still works as long as you have those symptoms. And finally, if you have these symptoms, you're not alone. About 1 in 5 adults technically has IBS, but only about 5% are diagnosed. So about 15% of the population is walking around with undiagnosed IBS. So you might be thinking, oh, this sounds like it would work for me, but my doctor never actually told me I have IBS. Well, you might be one of those 15% of people who have it and just haven't been diagnosed with it. Most importantly, though, I know it's a nightmare to deal with, and I'm just here to honor that fact and tell you that, because I feel like too often it's dismissed as something that's like not a big deal, but it is a big deal. So I'm glad you're here to try to change the tide with it for yourself. And there's definitely hope. I've helped hundreds of people achieve remission from it. My colleagues have helped hundreds more. So stay tuned. We're going to get started, okay? There's 4 tricks that I'm going to share with you. The first one is to use approaches that are scientifically proven to be effective. And I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about here. I had this client that came to me named Beth, and she had really severe diarrhea type IBS, and she was very malnourished and very underweight. So when I assessed Beth, I found that, okay, she's eliminating all these different foods from her diet. And the reason why she's eliminating these is that she's heard them from all kinds of different places. So like on Pinterest, she saw to do one thing. On Instagram, she saw to do another thing. Her best friend Sally said to do another thing. And before you know it, she's got all these limitations in her diet, and she was down to basically like 4 things that she would eat. And they're not very nutrient dense: rice, muffins, toast, and chicken. So that had gone on for a few years. And basically the primary reason why Beth had come to me was that she was now developing new problems because of her poor nutrient status. She was having anxiety, frequent illness, insomnia, and tooth decay because of her nutrition status. So she's like, what do? I have to cut these foods out to make my IBS better, but now it's making me sick. Basically, here's what we did. I taught her this system that I'm going to show you. It worked. She was able to bring a ton of new foods into her diet. Her nutrition status improved. She gained weight, and she achieved full recovery from IBS, and as well as improvement of all those new symptoms that she was having. So it works, and it's based on science, and it's the low FODMAP. It's called diet, but really it's a protocol and a process that you work through, and I'll tell you more about that. But basically, this has been studied in over 20 clinical trials and proven to work. So instead of Beth's like piecing things together from here and there, it's a system that it's complete, and you go from A to B, and it takes care of your symptoms without making you sick. I'm not going to go into all the clinical trials of the low FODMAP diet because we'd be here all night, but I'll give you a few highlights. So here's a couple studies, and if you type these DOI codes in, you'll find the full study in Google. But basically, they've done a bunch like this where they put a group of people with IBS onto the low FODMAP protocol with a dietitian. And basically, within 3 to 4 weeks, it's 70 to 80% of them are in remission. And the rest of them still are generally all improved. So it's extremely powerful. Another thing that there's been several studies that they've done is they basically take a group of people with IBS and they compare them to, they put them on the low FODMAP diet and compare them to another group with IBS that gets traditional IBS advice, like avoid caffeine, gassy foods like broccoli and cauliflower, large meals, and fat. So they'll tell one group to avoid those things, and they'll give the other group low FODMAP. Across the board, the low FODMAP group always outperforms the traditional diet advice group. So if you're still going into your healthcare provider and getting advice like this, they need to wake up, because there's a better thing out there, and it's actually much more effective. This might not sound like much, but in 2017, in one of the premier gastroenterology journals, Gut, they officially came out with a meta-analysis where they looked at all of the research on the low FODMAP diet, and they said, okay, we're going to say there's convincing evidence for the low FODMAP diet. And they're kind of conservative, so that doesn't sound that big, but that's actually a huge statement from them. They've never said that about any diet for IBS ever. So they're behind it. Bottom line, when you summarize all of the research on low FODMAP, the study shows 70 to 80% of people with IBS experience remission on the low FODMAP diet. In my practice, it's closer to 90%, and I've really never seen somebody that didn't improve if they did it correctly. There's no medication on the market that has that kind of power. So, you know, I'm sure you know that, or else you wouldn't be here. If there was a pill that would fix it, you would have had it already, of course. And so you know that. But basically, it's more effective than anything else for achieving IBS remission. So if you've never heard of low FODMAP, basically, I'll go into a little bit about what that means. It's an acronym. So it's talking about, it's not a low carbohydrate diet, but it is certain types of carbohydrates are FODMAPs. It's fibers and sugars that don't get broken down and absorbed very well in your gut. And what does that cause? It causes IBS symptoms, the ones that you know so well, you know, cramping, pain, bloating, reflux, diarrhea, constipation. You know what it is. So basically, when you break it down, here's what FODMAP stands for. It's fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. So you might be thinking, girl, I'm out. I don't go around eating polyols, so I'm good. How about if I put it like this? Here is just a few, not all, but a few foods that are very high in FODMAPs. So if you look at this, you know, try to take note of a couple things here that you eat. If you're not expressly avoiding FODMAPs, you're eating them because they're in everything. So if you've got that little workbook there, or if you've got just a piece of paper, write down a couple things from this list that you eat. It doesn't take much FODMAPs. If it's the kind you're sensitive to, it doesn't take much to wreck your day. So think about garlic and onion. Think about all the things that's in. And I could go on. But basically, the point is, FODMAPs are everywhere. If you're not on a low FODMAP diet already, it's worth a try because they're everywhere. So basically, how does this work? You can kind of think of FODMAPs as like a lock, and then your body produces digestive enzymes that are like the key. So the key opens the lock and digests that FODMAP and digests that food. But with FODMAPs, your body doesn't have the key that it needs. So it can't digest the FODMAP, and it goes down through your gut basically undigested, whereas the other normal foods are getting broken down. Here's two things that happen when that FODMAP goes down through your gut. The first thing is it pulls in water into your gut, and that causes problems, obviously, a gut full of water. And then the second thing that happens is if there's any bacteria in your gut, which there definitely is in your colon, and some people even have it in their small intestine, and that's called SIBO, but any bacteria along that gut is going to digest those FODMAPs and produce gas as their waste product. So now you're getting water and gas filling your gut, and that causes the IBS symptoms. So really, with the low FODMAP protocol, it's about minimizing that water and gas in your GI tract and getting to your broadest possible diet. So you're not getting overly restricted. And in over 80% cases, IBS remission when you can achieve that. And I'll explain to you how it works. So you might be thinking, okay, I could take, less water and gas giving me IBS. How do you actually do this? Well, there's a few broad concepts around the low FODMAP diet that are really critical. The first thing is that it's a learning protocol where you end up at your own personalized diet. So it's not just some chintzy handout that I can give you, like do this and don't do that. It's basically like you go through the process, and I've simplified it and refined it to where it is easy to go through, but you do have to go through the process and learn through the steps that you take that I give you what FODMAPs work for you and what FODMAPs don't, and at what amounts, basically. Another broad concept to understand is that it's an elimination diet, and that actually means elimination reintroduction. So there's multiple phases to go through, and to just stop at the elimination and not reintroduce is dangerous. So it's important to go through all the phases. That's a common mistake that I make. People will just stop after the first or second phase. And then another concept, and this is great, is that nothing's really completely off limits with low FODMAP the way that it is with, like, say, a celiac, like strict gluten-free diet. You can be gluten-free on it if you want to, but you don't have to be completely off of really anything. It's more, you can kind of think of it as your gut is like a bucket, and you learn what types of FODMAPs and foods fill your bucket and by how much, and through the process of doing it. And when your bucket overflows, you get symptoms. If you keep your bucket from overflowing, no symptoms. So when you get to the point where that's intuitive and easy, then, life is good. So the trick is learning what type of FODMAP and how much of it makes your bucket overflow, okay? It definitely takes a system to do that. Again, it's not complicated or difficult, but it is a system, or else it's just kind of, you've, I'm sure, done it before. Random guesswork. I ate this one day and it seemed fine, and then I ate it the next day and it didn't seem fine. Well, that's because maybe one day you had other FODMAPs and that contributed to filling your bucket, and the other day you didn't. So getting on the system is what helps you to really work this out without all that stress and guesswork. So your end goal is getting to your individualized diet that eliminates your symptoms, of course, but also with the least possible restrictions, because life's not worth living without being able to enjoy your food, right? You might be wondering what kind of nasty food I'm talking about on this low FODMAP diet. Well, here's a few low FODMAP diets that I cooked recently. And my kids, I have 3 little boys, they eat all this food. They like it. It's normal food. There's like salmon, cookies, pancakes with bacon, pad thai, Thai food, cottage pie. So it's normal food. It's just learning those tricks of what things to swap out to make it low FODMAP, and off you go. If you're here and you have tried low FODMAP before and you didn't have luck with it, let me talk to you, because I can't even tell you how many times I have had somebody come to my practice and tell me that they were doing low FODMAP or that they did it. And when I look at their food diary, I see big mistakes, lots of FODMAPs in there. So that's not their fault. There's a lot of bad information out there. And so that's the whole reason why I'm here, is to help people get access to actually the real low FODMAP diet, because it's not junk that you find online that isn't complete or incorrect, okay? Here's an example. This isn't technically FODMAP, but I had to call this one out. I've been on Pinterest, you guys. I can't help myself. But here's a list of their common IBS triggers, and they've got these 8 things here. Well, you could cut all these out, and life would be pretty sad, because like all the fun foods are on here. And most of the high FODMAP foods aren't listed. So basically what would happen if you did this is that you would be miserable and you would still have IBS symptoms. So this is an example of incomplete and like basically not helpful information that you find online. Here's one that's low FODMAP specifically. They're saying here's what to eat on the low FODMAP diet. There's another half that's like the red. And first of all, what about the other like 95% of foods? There's not that many foods on here. Second of all, if you actually ate, there's no like amounts on here. If you ate as much of these foods as you wanted, like a lot of these are actually high FODMAP foods. So it's just kind of wrong. So it's incomplete, incorrect. Like there's some nuances here that are missed, like soy milk, some are okay and some aren't. So this isn't actually made to help people succeed in real life. What happens when you go out to a restaurant or party? What are you going to do with this? So my point is, if you've tried low FODMAP, stick with me. There is actually a good way to do it that actually makes it work for you. Okay, I've been talking long enough. It's your turn to take action. Just on your workbook real quick, I'm not saying that everything you find online is wrong at all. I'm just saying it's dangerous to piece stuff together, and not everything online is good. So any places where you been getting information like blogs, Pinterest, or Instagram, write those down on your paper or your worksheet. And then also write down any places like anecdotal advice that you've been getting. So things like Facebook groups, friends or family. I swore I wouldn't tell this story, but I have to. I was on an IBS-free Facebook group last week, and there was a guy, if you've heard of fecal microbiome transplant, it's basically like you get other people's microbiome through like a clinical setting that's tested. He was literally telling people to eat their family's feces, which is so dangerous, not to mention disgusting. But if you know about something called H. pylori, I mean, come on, obviously it's dangerous. So my point is, you can't trust every random person online to give you helpful advice, right? So make a mental note. If you're still having IBS after you've tried some things that you looked around and found online, tell yourself you deserve better. You deserve to get on a complete system. I'm going to tell you a few ways to do that, but you deserve it, okay? Not just to piece stuff together like Beth that I told you about earlier. Here's what you can expect on the low FODMAP protocol: 80% improvement within 3 weeks. That's what I promise my private clients, and you can achieve the same if you have a good resource. Here's a few options. You can go the traditional route and ask your doctor or care provider for a referral to a dietitian, and if the stars align and they are willing to do it and you can find somebody that's trained in it and your insurance will pay for it, or you have a lot of money to pay for it, good for you. For like 90% of the people, that doesn't work out. So here's another couple options. Patsy and Kate are a couple of other dietitians that I trust that have good information on their websites. There's an app from Monash University. They're the ones that pioneered the low FODMAP diet. Their app isn't free, but it's not very expensive. It has a great little quick start guide in there, and their information is accurate. Or wait till the end, because I'm going to tell you, of course, what is, I think, the best way to do this. But stay tuned for that. Okay, so the second of 4 tricks, and these other 3 are quick, is to try to eat more and not less. And before you get mad and want to like punch me through your computer screen, I'm not saying that you should just be able to tolerate more food and like all kinds of food. I'm saying you deserve a system that like helps you figure out more food variety that you can eat if you've been restricting your diet. Let me explain what I'm talking about. So I had this client named Jerry that came to me not because of his IBS. He had a long history of IBS, constipation type, but he actually came to me because he had developed a new autoimmune disease, psoriasis, which is the skin. Also was very fatigued, and when I assessed Jerry, here's what I found. He had a very compromised immune system, and that's what kicked off his autoimmune disease. It was caused by nutrient deficiencies, and he had those because he basically started low FODMAP. And that first phase where you go low FODMAP is supposed to go like 2 to 6 weeks. But what he did is he just stayed there for years. He stayed completely low FODMAP for years, had a limited diet, and basically developed nutrient deficiencies as a result of that. And so basically what we did with Jerry is I took him through the process of reintroducing FODMAPs. He found he was only sensitive to one type, and it's called fructans. It's one type of FODMAPs. About 80% of the foods that he was limiting, we were able to bring back. He still had his IBS remission, but he also improved his nutrient status and started seeing improvement of his psoriasis. So I just mean this as a note of caution. If you've been limiting your diet with, hey, who with IBS doesn't limit their diet, right? You've got to be careful not to stay too limited for too long. It's better to get on a process that helps you figure out more foods that work for you, so that your diet can be not only more nutritious, but also more enjoyable, right? So your turn to take action. Write down on your workbook or your paper any foods that you're avoiding. Obviously, if the list is long, you're not going to complete it right now, but make a mental note if there's quite a few foods on that list for you, because those are affecting your nutrition status. Even people that don't limit their diets in the modern world tend to have nutrient insufficiencies. It's very common. It's about 98% of adults in the modern world who don't restrict their diet. So just think if you're restricting your diet, how much more your nutrition status is at risk, okay? One other quick thing you can do is get on a high-quality multivitamin with minerals, and I'm not talking about like the name brand ones that you can get from Target or Walmart. Those are IBS disaster because they've got all kinds of stuff in them that can cause a flare. So I'm talking about quality product that has like all of these things out of them, like fibers, prebiotics, fillers. You don't want any of that stuff in there, and you want highly absorbable forms as well. If you need help with this, just reach out and I can give you some suggestions. And finally, think about your diet. Do you know exactly what types of FODMAPs you're sensitive to? If not, it's important to go through that process, and there is a defined process for figuring that out so that you can have certainty about what foods work for you and what foods don't, okay? And then finally, you use those reintroductions to increase your food variety. So normally I have a paid consult to teach this to people, but I'm just going to give it to you because, again, I want this to get out there. Here's what I do for FODMAP reintroductions. I say, okay, there's 6 types of FODMAPs we're going to test. You're going to do each one a different week. So it's going to be a 6-week process. And then people basically have a quarter of a serving of that food the first day. Or if they are very sensitive, we might even start with an eighth of a serving. But basically, you double it every day until you get to 2 servings per day. Or if your IBS flares. And then if that's the case, you know you don't tolerate that FODMAP type. But if you get up to 2 servings a day, then you tolerate that FODMAP. Of course, it's critical to like be on the low FODMAP diet before that so that you have a baseline of like feeling good so that you can tell what the effect of that FODMAP was. Then I have a 3-day washout between types and start the next one. Here's the specific foods that I use to test each FODMAP type. So let's say you're going to trial GOS, then you would basically make some food that had cooked chickpeas or lentils in it. The first day, eat a quarter or even an eighth of a serving. Every day, double it until 2 servings, and then you'll know whether you tolerate GOS or not, basically. And then you just keep a record through that. You have your 3-day washout, and then you start the next one. All right, moving on to trick number 3. This step might sound silly, but that's why I included some kind of like, hopefully, I don't know if they're fun or sad, but I've included some examples of why this is in here. Super critical to prepare, because if you're excited about this, like who wouldn't be excited about how effective it is? It gets tempting to just say, okay, awesome, I'm going to start like today, right? Don't do that, because here's some ways that I've seen it go wrong. This wasn't my client, it was another dietitian's client, but she had a girl start a little FODMAP, but hadn't said that, oh, like the next week she was a bridesmaid at her sister's wedding. So between all the stress and chaos of that and staying up half the night drinking at the wedding, obviously like the low FODMAP protocol kind of fell apart. So that just wasn't great timing for starting. It would have been good to start like after the wedding, right? Another one, this was my client. I'll admit, I didn't know he had a big work deadline coming up, and I think he thought it wouldn't be a big deal, but late nights at the office, lots of stress, it kind of made the whole thing not work very well. So again, would have been better to wait until after that big work deadline. Another client decided to go overseas in the middle of it for like a prolonged trip. Foods weren't in English on the menus. Labels at the grocery store weren't in English. Obviously, you can see that it didn't work out during that trip to do the low FODMAP protocol. So again, working around travel is always a good decision. And finally, I had a client who her calendar was actually pretty quiet, but she said, oh, it's not working for me because basically every night my husband kind of mixes up a cocktail and brings me a little bowl of ice cream, and then I feel sick and I can't tell if the low FODMAP is working. So basically, my whole point with these is that don't jump right in right away. It's important to prepare. Obviously, the timing is critical. I really tell people they need a 2-week period that's really calm in order to start and like get your feet under you and start doing the elimination phase of it is what that's called. And then really a pretty quiet 5 to 7 weeks after that is good for when you're ready to start reintroductions. Obviously, you can't just put life on hold, but major events like what I shared with you, best not to do it right before those. Another planning step that's really important is involving your family and your loved ones in your decision. Like when that client with the husband that was bringing cocktails every night, after she talked to him, he was totally happy to support her. He just didn't realize that like it had to be 100% at first. And so, it's just important to talk to your family and get them on board. What is it that you need? Is it childcare? Is it help with buying groceries? Is it help with driving your kids to soccer practice? People's picking up slack at work, whatever it is that you need, try to talk to people and get them on board with you. And finally, if you feel that you need professional oversight and support, I recommend it if you're working alone, or if you're working with me, then you probably don't need additional oversight and support. But, it is important to have somebody that can troubleshoot with you. I'm going to give you some resources for places to find somebody. It's best not to do anything alone, right? But if you're in the United States, don't feel like you need to copy these down. I'm going to send out the slides to you later. So just know that this is in here and you can look at it later to get these links. But basically, here's where you can find some FODMAP trained dietitians in the United States. And then because I lived in the UK, I know a few there. There's just not as many in the UK, unfortunately. But here's a few places where you can start, at least trying to find somebody. Okay, your turn again to take some action on your workbook or paper. Write this down. This is so true. I deserve support and a chance to succeed at healing. The reason why I include this is that too often I see people who don't fully prepare because it's almost like they don't feel like they deserve to have their life changed. This can change your life. You deserve a new life. And preparation is a huge part of that. So write that down and get that mentality, because that's what's going to help you to be successful. Okay, moving on to our last trick that I'm going to share. It is to ditch the strict diet template and customize for you as a unique individual. And I'm going to basically explain to you what I'm talking about here. But if you've ever been in a medical appointment or a medical encounter where you felt like they're giving everybody the same thing based on their diagnosis, but like we talked about before, you could have 3 people with IBS in the room, and because it's a bucket diagnosis, they actually all 3 have different underlying causes. And so in the end, they'll all arrive at different versions of the low FODMAP protocol that works for them because they have different things going on. Okay, guys, this is the last one, I promise. But I've been on Pinterest again. I'm just giving you an example I'm talking about here. These one-size-fits-all solutions. They've put these infographics out there and saying, here's what to do for IBS. Well, how are you going to actually apply this in real life? I mean, on the left here, the green category has like 10 foods in it. You can't live off of those. And actually, some of those are high FODMAP. So I'm not sure how that's supposed to work. And then on the right here, foods to eat, there's not actually any foods listed. Same with foods to avoid. And then somehow chocolate is like the only important food that they listed. So my point here is that if you've struggled to see success with like diet and your IBS, stuff like this isn't like, it's not going to work because it doesn't actually, it's not made for real people in real life. It obviously wasn't made by a clinician that's like living in reality. Okay. It's just clickbait. You're unique. You need something that honors your individuality and that can fit into your own unique lifestyle and your own unique preferences and your unique situation with your digestive system. So basically, what do these templates, and unfortunately I've seen them even come from medical clinics, but these one-size-fits-all templates, they cause a lot of unnecessary restriction and confusion. Like with the clients I told you about, they're restricting things based on like advice, not what they actually needed to restrict in some cases. Okay, here's basically what I was talking about before, why one size does not always fit all with IBS diets. These are just some of the possible underlying causes of IBS. Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO, like we talked about earlier, leaky gut, gluten sensitivity, histamine, food sensitivities, visceral hypersensitivity. All of these things can have different FODMAP sensitivities depending on a variety of factors. So my point is, it doesn't need to be complicated, but it does need to be something that can flex for you and what you need, basically. All right, so it's your turn to take action again. I'm going to tell you exactly how to personalize the low FODMAP approach for yourself. So first of all, forget about this idea of trying to find the perfect diet prescription. You know, I actually had somebody troll me on my Facebook page the other day. She said she was mad, and she said she had seen one of my posts about IBS, and she said, I want you to stop holding back and just tell me what works. I want you to write a blog post that tells me what to eat. Why don't you just give me what I need to fix this? And the sad thing about that is, again, it's a process. I've made the process easy, but it is a process that you have to go through. If there was one, you guys know that, if there was one little like sheet that told you what to eat and what not to fix this, you would have done it already, right? So I think you know there's more to it than that because it's pretty obvious, right? It's about getting on a system to arrive at your personalized diet, maximizing your improvement while minimizing restrictions and discomfort. That's what the low FODMAP protocol really is about. Here's specifically how you personalize it, okay? Again, I'll usually take a consult to describe this, but I know you can do it based on this. You basically figure out what types of FODMAPs that you're sensitive to. You use that protocol that I told you earlier where you would make, you would try GOS first or whichever one you want. Figure out what types of FODMAP you're sensitive to, and then get a food list that tells you exactly what types of FODMAPs each food has. the Monash app that I told you about, that's one place that you can get that, okay? Then let's say you're sensitive to fructans like Jerry was. You go through that list and see what foods have fructans. If it has fructans, those are foods that you need to be careful about. If it's a FODMAP you're not sensitive to, even if it's high FODMAP, but it has the FODMAPs you're not sensitive to, you don't have to be so cautious with it. So it's about the process of figuring that out and getting in a groove with that. And before long, it becomes very intuitive. Obviously, while you do this, you've got to experiment with one food at a time and keep your diet otherwise the same, because that can cause a lot of confusion while multiple foods are changing at once, obviously. So remember, my whole point here is that you're a unique individual. You know yourself the best, even better than your doctor or anybody else. And you have an innate ability to heal with the right conditions. You don't need a prescription medication. That's not going to do it. Your body knows how to heal if you give it the right conditions. Here's the first step in making that happen. You've got to find a system that helps you win at this to achieve IBS remission in a loving and supportive environment, okay? Not an environment that makes you feel small or that you should fit in a convenient box or that's on your head, okay? So with all that, those are my 4 tips. I'd love to hear what you think. I hope you see how powerful the low FODMAP diet or protocol can be for reversing IBS. It eliminates symptoms for the vast majority of people, and it changes lives. So would it be amazing to have freedom from your digestive problems so that you could focus more time on the things that you love doing? So I don't know exactly why you came today, but I can probably guess, because I've worked with so many IBS patients. You might be fed up with the pain and embarrassment of dealing with this and having to know where a bathroom is anywhere you go. You might be frustrated that no matter where you turn, nobody seems to be able to fix this for you. You might be actually really worried about the long-term effects of this on your health, like with my clients I told you about earlier, and on your career and on your relationships, because that is a real thing, as you know, that happens. You probably feel like you don't have the time to figure this all out. There's a new blog post about it every day. How can you read all this? The information conflicts. One says this, one says that. How do you sort this all out? How do you find the time to do it? And you might feel like if you just had a really detailed but easy to follow path along with a social group to do it with, that would help you to be successful. If that's the case, then I have some encouragement for you. It's about time that you achieve full control of your digestion, of your health, and of your life. And all it takes is a good system with the right information and strong support. It's your time for this. You came, you took your time tonight to listen to this, you took the notes. You're probably excited about the low FODMAP protocol, doing it correctly. And you probably are wondering about what I said before. What's the best way to do this? And that's basically where I come in. I want to share with you, though, that nothing I've shown you is theory. I've used this process to reverse IBS over and over again. And these are people who have tried all the diets. They've gone to all the doctors, and they're frustrated, and they feel like there's no end in sight. It still works for them because it is a science-based thing, and I've refined it to make it work for real life, basically, unlike those infographics we looked at. So another thing to keep in mind is that the people that I've helped using this approach, they weren't special. They were just like you. They didn't have any special resources or special tools or a lot of money. They were just normal people with IBS who followed my system, and that it works. So I mean that when I say that if they can do it, if Beryl can do it from the beginning, the grandma, you can do it too. So, do you want to know how to achieve radical IBS improvement by implementing this protocol correctly? If so, you've got a couple options. You could do it the complicated and confusing way that you know so well, of guessing games with this, guessing games with that, not really getting anywhere. Or you can go the simple and effective route. And I think you can probably guess which way I recommend. If you want to go the simple and effective route, well, then let me invite you to join me in Recovery from IBS. Recovery from IBS is the A to Z blueprint that tells you how to cut your digestive problems by at least 80% within 3 weeks, yielding life-changing results. It's completely available online, ready to go right now. for you to watch and use at your convenience, at your own pace. Let me tell you about one of my clients that went through the course. Her name's Melissa, and she's a very busy working full-time mom with 2 young kids. She has a 15-year history of IBS. She went through the course in her evenings, after work, after the kids went to bed. It took her 2 weeks on the diet to achieve 80% remission, and then at 2 months, she was at full remission. She also had way more energy for her kids, and she had a better mood. She was less sad. And when I asked her for her story, she said, "Erin, you've changed my life." And she did it all with her busy schedule. And I've seen people do it over and over again. It's so possible and amazing. So here's what you get with the course. First of all, you're going to get my complete protocol that takes out all the confusion and guesswork and overwhelm around doing this. Because what I've seen over and over again is people buy the book, or they buy several books, or they get like a downloaded PDF handout with like a food list on it. Invariably, they come to me having made mistakes and feeling like it didn't work. When you get the complete protocol, you don't have that concern. It takes you through it without you having to think about what to do and figure it out. It just tells you step by step what to do. It's all 100% online and virtual. You've got unlimited membership and updates for the lifetime of the course, which is at least 5 years. So anytime I update it, anytime I put in a new bonus, you have access to it. Also very critical, you've got support from me. So this isn't like buying a book or something at the store that you're on your own to do it. You've got access to me, a trained dietitian, to help you troubleshoot through this when you have trouble. And you've also got a community of other people that are going through it with you in our Facebook community for the course. Here's what else you'll get. You get 3 full weeks of meal plans from me. It includes recipes, shopping lists, plug and play. And then I also include 3 other ways to get meal plans that are very complete and easy to get. And I tell you the pros and cons of each. I've got a bunch of handouts and templates for getting started with ease. You don't have to make any of this up. You just print it out. I give it to you when you need it, and you just follow the steps. And then you've got confidence, and it works. I've also included, again, because I'm used to working with people in real life that have real needs, all of these cheat sheets. I tell you how to dine out at restaurants, what to do at parties. I tell you what snacks to eat. I give you a meal plan for having like work week lunches at the ready. They're no cook. You can just put them together the night before without even cooking them. I've got how to switch out your pantry so that you can basically convert any recipe to low FODMAP using my food swaps and more things like that, just to make it so that you can actually go on living your life from the first day. Here's specifically what I include in each module. So in the first module, we lay the foundation. I describe more about IBS and interfacing with your healthcare provider during the program if you decide to do that. In the second lesson, I go more into the scientific evidence supporting the low FODMAP diet, and I talk about the impact on the microbiome. Long story short on that, you guys, is basically that it doesn't harm your microbiome if you do it the correct way, and that's been shown in studies. But if you do it the wrong way, it can affect your microbiome. And then in the third lesson, I tell you exactly all the ins and outs of the low FODMAP diet, what it is and how it works. In the second module, we prepare for success, like we talked about. So I tell you exactly how to establish your support network, pick your ideal start date, which apps and websites that you want in order to get started. And then I tell you about meal plans. So I give you 4 great options. I give you the pros and cons of each so you can pick the best option for your needs. And then finally, I talk about these really important lifestyle pillars in lesson 3 that will really, really amplify your success. Things like stress relief, how to get more sleep, and how to optimize your exercise, because aren't those like really critical components of this whole picture? Again, I've included 3 different weeks of meal plans to help you get started, plus giving you other options for where to get meal plans, but here's an example of what I'm talking about. And then in module 3, how exciting, you start your diet and you start getting some really rapid improvement. So in the first lesson, I tell you exactly what to do to get started, and I make you take out the guesswork and save you time with all of the helpful handouts that I've included. In the second lesson, I tell you again how to dine out at restaurants, how to travel, eat at parties from day one. Okay, so you're not going to be some hermit holed up in your house for weeks, not able to like go out with your friends. In lesson 3, I give you more resources for real life. So snacks and work week lunches are primarily what I talk about there. Teach you how to use those. And then finally, this is so great, you guys. People love this. I have this final checklist that basically before you begin, you check to make sure you've done these 7 steps so that you know you're ready to go. Here's what you can expect during module 3. Way less bloating, if any. Say goodbye to abdominal pain and cramping. Goodbye to reduce, or say you're going to have reduced gas and reflux during this significantly. You're going to have more normal elimination patterns, especially if you're diarrhea type, and I also include tips for if you're constipation type. You're going to have more energy and have a better mood during this. So it's not like this burden thing, or else it wouldn't work, where you're just stressed over doing it. You actually feel a lot better, and it's easy to start. Then in module 4, we broaden the diet like we talked about, adding back foods in a systematic way. I teach you exactly how to do that. The first lesson is what most dietitians will teach you with a reintroduction protocol, like I already introduced to you earlier. The next lesson, you never get this from everybody else. It's kind of like they teach you reintroductions and then, boop, have a nice life. But really, there's this whole other phase that happens after that where you're figuring out what to do next and what your next steps are, and you're refining it for your unique individual situation. So I kind of help you navigate that with that second lesson in module 4. Here's what you can expect during this module. You're going to start to learn what specific FODMAPs you need to avoid or not, and you're going to start to feel really confident in what foods you can tolerate and what foods you can't, and how to navigate the world without triggering an IBS flare. So you'll still maintain your improvement, but you'll start to be able to enjoy more foods and have more confidence. Okay, and then the final module, module 5, we're going beyond FODMAPs. And we're going to move into integrative and functional medicine. So in the first lesson, I teach you about the root causes of IBS and how to address them. The second lesson, I give you the details about how to select dietary supplements. I'm for them and not against them, but you do have to be so careful. So I kind of walk you into that world and give you some tips for getting started there for IBS specifically. And then in the final lesson, I teach you, if you want to work one-on-one with somebody, the type of people to look for, where to find them, and how to get started with finding somebody to work with individually to try to address the root causes of your IBS. Because, hey, the only thing that's better than being on a diet that works is not having to be on a diet, right? So that's the long-term goal. And then, like I said before, there is a Facebook community for the group. So I'm in there daily to answer your questions, as well as the rest of the course members. So are you ready to use this approach to eliminate your IBS symptoms and change your life? If so, you might be wondering, what is the investment? Well, I added up everything that's included, and the total value of the course comes to around $1,500 or 1,200 pounds. But that's my whole point of why I'm here, right? I feel like this is criminal that people are having to pay this just to get started. So what I've done is I've tried to package it into a really accessible offer for you. And so I've been able to put this course together for $289 or 229 pounds. And if you get it today while we're on this seminar, you're going to also get this fast action bonus, and that even improves the value of the course. So if you're ready to go, head on over there and get started. It's recoveryfromibs.com/course. Head there, and it's going to take you and help you to start getting enrolled. Basically, here's what this fast action bonus is. It's a template that's MYOS, make your own smoothie. And so if you try low FODMAP before, you know that like when you're trying to do low FODMAP, the idea of making a smoothie is like terrifying. But it's actually so convenient to be able to have a smoothie so that you're never left hungry. Even if you didn't have time to cook, or you had a quick morning or whatever, you need something after your workout, you can whip up one of these smoothies, no problem. You basically just look at the template, you pick a liquid, you pick a protein, a fruit and vegetable, fat, flavoring, there's some optional extras, blitz that thing together, and off you go. So the template is awesome for basically never having to worry about being hungry or short of a meal from day one of the protocol, and you'll get that if you join while we're live on the seminar today. So if you head over to the website, recoveryfromibs.com/course, you're gonna hit the website there for the course, and that's what it looks like on her computer there. What I want you to do is go ahead and scroll down and find that turquoise button that says click here to get instant access, or you should have like a floating button at the bottom that says sign me up. You can pick either one of those buttons, and that's going to take you to this checkout page. Just fill that out and submit it, and then give it a couple minutes, and then you should be getting your access to the course. It's ready to go, virtual and online, for you to do in your pajamas or whatever you want. You'll also get links to request access to the Facebook group, and you'll start getting some emails from me to encourage you and help you to get started as you go. All right, another big thing that I want to share with you is that I've used this with so much success with people that I know it works, so I don't even mind doing this. I'm including this really long money back guarantee. It's 6 weeks, because I know that you don't always feel good, and so you're not always ready to like jump in and learn something new every day. I understand that. So it does not take 6 weeks to figure out if this works for you, but 6 weeks from when you join, if it doesn't work for you, just show me that you tried it. Show me your food diary and your symptom log, and as long as you gave it a go, then if it didn't work for you, I'll send your money back, no problem, okay? So here's again that value broken out by items. For example, I found a bunch of like low FODMAP packages from dietitians online. They came out to about $750 just for the dietitian package, and you usually don't get all these extras like with the package. That's just the time. So when you add it all up, it comes to this huge savings of about 80% off if you join the course at the $289 or 229 pounds. And that's not even including the fast action bonus. So you're getting it even more than 80% off of the value if you join while we're live on the seminar. Okay, so it's an awesome deal. I hope you join me. And just to recap, I'm thinking that about an hour ago when you came on the seminar, you might have been thinking this: I'm at a loss of what to do to stop my digestive problems. Well, Recovery from IBS is going to take you by the hand and walk you through step by step the scientifically proven system that will help you to get quick improvement, okay, without the overwhelm. Or you may have looked into low FODMAP, or you might have even tried it and you didn't think it would help you, or you didn't feel that it gave you the results you were hoping for. Well, listen, like I showed you, there's a lot of bad and incomplete FODMAP information around, and even people that get my resources, they still have questions. So if you're not working with somebody that can answer your questions, there's a good chance that you missed a part of it, because there's a lot to it. And that's why I've developed resources to break it down and make it so much more like digestible, basically. You don't just need a handout and a collection of recipes, basically, to be successful. You need the full protocol, and that's what Recovery from IBS is. It's a complete system that honors you as an individual. It takes you through the complete process and teaches you how to do it well in real life. And finally, you might be thinking, I'm way too busy to be doing this. I don't know if my family will eat this food. Well, first of all, my 3 little boys, obviously little boys are not like the best eaters, but they eat this food. It's just normal food. And in terms of time, I find that most people find that their life is easier once they start, because they don't have to think about what to cook. They don't have to worry about what to cook. They just buy the shopping list, cook the recipes, and off they go. And life is good. They feel good, and it's not complicated. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and start this timer for 20 minutes, and we're going to do a little Q&A. So if you haven't already, if you have a question, go ahead and type it into that Q&A field up there. And if you can't find that, but you can find the chat, feel free to type it in there as well. I'll check both. But basically, as long as you join the course within our Q&A, you'll get the fast action bonus. And I'd love to take any questions that you have. Well, I give you a minute to type those in. I'm going to answer 2 questions that I get really often, just because you might be wondering. Sometimes people ask me, I haven't been diagnosed with IBS before. Will this still help me? Well, again, there's about 15% of the population walking around right now, adult population, who could be diagnosed with IBS if they were worked up, but they don't have the diagnosis. So if you have these symptoms of gas, bloating, reflux, abdominal pain, cramping, diarrhea, constipation, then it's going to help you. I've never seen somebody that didn't benefit that had those symptoms. So I wouldn't get so stuck on whether or not you have the diagnosis. And then again, in the course, I teach you how to interface with your healthcare provider as you go through this, if that's something you decide you're going to do. And finally, don't forget that money back guarantee. If it doesn't work, show me you tried it and your money's back. Okay. One other common question I get is related, but what if I have questions or I don't get improvement? So the first thing to do if you're struggling or if you have a question is to reach out to me either in the Facebook group, or I'm including email access in the course feed, which is pretty awesome. So reach out to me, ask your question. It's great if you do it on Facebook because then other people can benefit, but I understand some things are private and you might not want to do that. So reach out to me. Usually all it takes is some troubleshooting and we can tweak it and get you the results that you're looking for. But if you really can't get improvement, again, there's the money back guarantee within 6 weeks, which is way more time than you really need to figure out if it works for you or not. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Thanks for sending questions, guys. Answer some of these. So this says, what's your view on kefir and kombucha for people with IBS and or acid reflux issues? Thank you, Zoe. I love this question. So so these are both probiotic foods, okay? What I like for people to do is to hold off at first because if somebody has IBS, there's a 70% chance that they have SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And if they have acid reflux, that chance is even higher. It's almost always the case that they have SIBO. When you take a probiotic food like kefir or kombucha, oftentimes those foods will flare SIBO or make it worse. So, and now some studies just came out this year, at the end of 2018, showing, I know this is like horrible, but basically probiotic supplements were causing SIBO and causing the small intestine to basically get populated with bacteria that made IBS worse. So what I like for people to do is to hold off on probiotic foods at first, because sometimes it helps and sometimes it doesn't. I like them to go through the low FODMAP protocol, get feeling really good, get a good baseline using that. And then another great thing about that is it causes like an 8-fold decrease of your histamine when you're on the low FODMAP diet. And if you do have high histamine, things like kefir and kombucha will really increase histamine and make it worse. So when you get your good baseline from being on the low FODMAP protocol, then you go ahead and just basically do this like an experiment. I'll have people try some fermented foods like this with small doses and gradually working up. Because again, we know that probiotics, we know they can help some people with IBS. It's about a 1 in 8 chance. So whereas the low FODMAP diet has like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 chance of helping, a probiotic, it's like only 1 out of 8. So it's less than 1 out of 10 chance. So it's not nearly as effective. But again, for some people, some probiotics can be good, but I keep that for a later experiment. So hopefully that helps, Zoe. If you have further questions, type them in. But those are my thoughts on probiotic foods. Low FODMAP first, and then once you're good and you're established on that, give it a try and see if it works for you or not. And then, okay, I'm seeing another question. Excuse me, I'm throat clearing over here. Okay, so yeah, I saw this other comment about traveling. I know it's so hard. Okay, so do you eliminate all FODMAPs for 2 weeks and then reintroduce certain categories of FODMAPs one at a time? Also, do you stop all supplements that you're currently taking? Rochelle, thank you. These are awesome questions. So you never technically remove all FODMAPs. There's a system in the course that I teach you that basically has where foods are either high or low. And if they're high, you avoid them during that during that first phase, but not forever. If they're low, though, they're either bold or not bold. And if they're not bold, you can eat unlimited amounts of those foods during that initial phase. And then if they are bold, you can have a maximum of 2 servings of that per sitting. And so basically all the meal plans in the course have this like built in, but that's the protocol that you follow for like the initial elimination phase, and that goes for 2 to 6 weeks. Okay. And then after that 2 to 6 weeks, that's when people start to feel like $1 million. Then yes, you bring back the FODMAP types one at a time using that protocol that I showed you earlier for like 1 week each. And that tells you which types you're sensitive to. So it's kind of like you're painting on a blank canvas. Like you're at your baseline feeling good. And then each FODMAP that you try, it's really telling when you try those foods, how you tolerate them. And then on supplements, it depends. And for people in the course, I help decide on that. But I don't actually like to make a lot of changes at once because it's kind of like a scientific experiment. But if there's some non-essential supplements that could be problematic, like a probiotic, I do tend to take those out initially. Or if there's like a poor quality supplement that could have, like we talked about with the vitamin, like fillers, prebiotics, basically like a lot of vitamins, you guys, have FODMAPs in them, and medications. Not that you would go off a medication without talking to your doctor, but it's a thing. So supplements are something I can help you troubleshoot in the course, but if you have something that you know is working for you, because some people are like that with their probiotic, like they know it helps, then I say, yeah, keep it in and go ahead and start. But if you're not sure and it's not essential, then I'll usually have people put it on hold. I hope that helps, Rochelle. Okay, I'm looking at more questions here. So somebody's asking, what else do I need to buy if I join the course? And I love that question. Nothing. There's a few like websites, apps that I recommend in there. Some of them are free. The most that any of them cost is like $10, and that's that Monash app. And even that is optional. And basically you just need to buy food, but you already buy food. In fact, I find that people tend to save money when they're doing it because they're cooking at home more, they're having less waste because they're buying the food plan food and just eating that. So there's not much expense there. And it does help to have a little food scale. You can get a good quality one for like $10-20. So that might be a little expense that you have. But no, there's no big hidden expense like you get in the course and it's like, boom, you need to buy all these supplements. There's nothing like that. The course fee is really all you need to get started, okay? Let me see what other questions I have. Okay, somebody's asking me, how long will it take to complete the course? And I love that question. So what's generally considered completing the low FODMAP protocol is to go through the elimination phase and then to reintroduce. So basically what you would do is you would come into the course, and I say you're going to want to take at least a week to watch all of the lessons that lead up to starting, because remember that preparation is so important. And then you're going to want to be on the elimination phase, which is the first low FODMAP phase, for at least 2 weeks, but you can go up to 6. So let's say you did the minimum, and that would be 2 weeks. So now you're at 3 weeks, and then the reintroductions take 6 weeks. So now you're at 9 weeks total. If that's too intense, you can definitely slow it down, no problem. But the fastest you could go would be 9 weeks. But it's really, as soon as you're into that first phase, that's when you start feeling really good. So you could get there within like 2 to 3 weeks. So you're feeling better and enjoying life. And then from then on, it's just refining your diet and expanding it. And then beyond the reintroductions, again, I do actually teach what to do there. Most people don't, but it does become very individualized. It's about more your community of other people that are doing it with you, finding what works for you in an individual, and then starting to work on those root causes. Because again, like we said, depending on what your root cause is, if you can address that, then you won't even need the low FODMAP protocol at all, right? So that's like the final phase. So it's a little open-ended at the end in terms of like what you do going forward, but 3 weeks to start feeling great, 9 weeks to finish the traditional protocol, basically. Okay, and I'm seeing another couple questions. So, are the meal plans for one person? Yes. So, because I get everything from like a single person to a family of 6, what I did is I just make the meal plans for one person, and then let's say you're a couple, I say double it. Or if it's a family of 4, depending on how old your kids are, you would triple or quadruple the shopping list and triple or quadruple the meal plans. And I've had so many people go through my courses with these type of meal plans. I can say with confidence that the scaling doesn't really seem to be a big problem for people. If they end up with extra food, they can freeze it and it tastes good. So that usually works better than if you make it a meal plan for 4 people and it's somebody that lives alone. That's really tough to do. So I let people go ahead and scale up. Send more questions if you have any. I'm seeing another one here. Oh, okay. It says, where has this been all my life? I'm so excited that you said that. That's why I'm doing this. I'm serious. If you don't know me, I know it's like with online marketing, you don't know if you can trust people or not, but I genuinely, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I started to get pissed off that this whole thing is so like walled off from people. 20% of people have IBS. Day in and day out, I see people, they're suffering for this, from this. And like, are you kidding me? You have to have like health insurance and like the right doctor and the right like special unicorn dietitian like living in your town. It makes me mad. So that's exactly why I'm doing this. Where has this been all of our life? Now it's here. So I love that question. Not a question, but thank you. Okay, so that's all the questions that we have tonight. But again, feel free to send me any. If you want to contact me, my email is right here on the slide, Erin@realnutritionrx.com. If you missed, of course you missed, if there's like any links you want from like earlier on and the protocols and everything, don't worry. Just keep an eye out on your email. I'm going to send this presentation out for you to have. And you can contact me anytime with questions. I thank you all for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care.